Okay, welcome to our continuing drama about Jewish meditation and spirituality. We're going to continue our discussion about how the Amidah is used as a meditation. We're going to look at the end of the bracha that talks about God bringing a redeemer to the patriarchs' children's children, meaning all the progeny, which seems to be timely because with all the havoc that is being wrought in the world, especially by the communists, people are praying for Mashiach. So we're going to learn a little bit about what Rabbi Kaplan says about the Mashiach, this Redeemer. And it will probably be the first of a number of discussions we'll have because there's a lot to say. We'll also, as has been our custom, we're going to talk about best practices for meditation to make it more effective, your own personal meditation, and then we'll have a meditation. So let us begin by our usual reminder about the website. Let's see what we got here. Been asked, even though I say to everybody, it's perfectly fine to share the link to this website, which you'll find in your emails and text. I still get asked about it, so I'm just going to remind everybody, yeah, please share it. Use your judgment. If you know somebody who you think might be interested, let them try us out here. So they'll see that it's got some background, it's got the next class coming up, it's got great resources, notes, recorded classes, links, recommended reading lists. So there's a lot of good stuff here. So I would even ask you to think of people with whom you could share this and say, hey, this is pretty cool, because there are really not a lot of groups or individuals really talking about Jewish meditation as the basis of our spirituality, and in particular focusing on Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, who happens to be, in my humble opinion, the best of the best talking about this. He just did his research. So, okay, let us move on to the class. Okay. Referencing Rabbi Kaplan and Jewish meditation, almost the very end of the Amidah, the first blessing of the Amidah, says that God remembers the love of the patriarchs and brings a redeemer to their children's children for his name's sake with love. We talked a little bit about this love last week, which I have to say I found fascinating, even though it's the 10th time I looked at it, in terms of God being so complete, so full, that he just had this teshuka, to share. His desire was to share what he's got, spread the wealth. And that's why he created people out of this love. So I thought that was quite excellent. Now we're going to back up a second and talk about the Redeemer. So this is what Rabbi Kaplan says in Jewish meditation. Pages 115 and 116. We see God as our hope in the future. No small thing in this age over which hangs a Damocles sword of nuclear destruction. We believe that God will bring a redeemer who will make the world a safe and sane place to live. We have faith that there will come a time when all humanity will be brought back to the God consciousness that the patriarchs enjoyed, and that this will be a time of universal peace and good for all humankind. This is our ultimate hope in the future. Notice that being spiritually minded and having experienced an elevated consciousness many times through his meditations, Rabbi Kaplan says that what we're all going to have in common is God consciousness. And God consciousness it appears that what he's saying is that's a prerequisite for this time of universal peace and good. God consciousness, whatever that is. Okay. God's name also figures both in the lives of the patriarchs and in our hope in the future. The experience of the patriarchs was always closely linked to God's name. The Torah tells that Abraham began his career by calling in the name of God. The patriarchs were thus the ones who initiated God consciousness to the world through his name. Not only did they link themselves to the infinite, but they also identified it with a name. The process begun by the patriarchs will be completed by the promised Redeemer, who will bring God's name to all humanity. So we're learning something here already about the Mashiach, about the Redeemer. This person is a spiritual teacher who, according to Rabbi Kaplan, is going to help us, humanity, become conscious of God, and in doing so will make God's name relevant in some way. One of the important prophecies regarding the messianic future is that, quoting Zechariah, on that day, God will be one and his name one. The name one. We sing that in the Leno. So not only will the entire world worship God, but everyone will call him by the same name. This will indicate that the whole world will have the same God consciousness as the heirs of the patriarchs. The Amidah expresses this by stating that the entire process will be for his name's sake. So, taking a huge panoramic view that Rabbi Kaplan is providing, starting with Abraham, the patriarch, Abraham initiated this consciousness of God, passed it on to Isaac, Jacob, fast forward all the way up to today. And they started this process of people becoming conscious of God. Again, I have to figure out what this really is. Culminating, not ending, but culminating in the work of the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to continue the work that Abraham started in terms of having now all people be conscious of God. We can say one thing, a very popular admonition of religious teachers, and I'm sure you've come across it many times, is, what would you do if you were mindful of the fact that God is watching you all the time, 24/7, 365? That to me is in the ballpark of God consciousness. How would you change your behavior? Okay. So this is Rabbi Kaplan getting us off to a start here. The Redeemer, as a completer of the process of everybody becoming conscious of God, so it doesn't end there. That's supposed to be the norm. All people being conscious of God. Okay. The word in the Amidah, the Hebrew word for the Redeemer, is maybe goel, Gimel-aleph-lamed. So we're going to study that a little bit. To me, that's a very smart way of getting the understanding of the principles and the ideas, getting a firmer understanding of what exactly the Hebrew word means. Okay. One of my favorite sources for this is Rabbi Hirsch's Etymological Dictionary of Biblical Hebrew, page 34. Let's take a look at that. So he says that shurish, that root, implies to release or purge, redeeming from existing danger, ransoming, refers to a redeemer. activate, progress. So it's related to the Shurish Gimel-aleph-lamed to expose Gilui Arayot, the times when people are exposed and vulnerable. So to release or purge. Release from what? Rabbi Hirsch references two examples in Torah to give us some context for that. So we're going to take a look at that. The first one is Genesis 48:16. We're going to go by Rabbi Kaplan's translation and commentary of the Torah. Let's take a look here. 48:16. So the scenario is, we're in Jacob's last days, Parashat Vayechi. And Jacob is giving Joseph a blessing. He's blessing all his sons. He's blessing, first he's blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's sons. And the translation from Rabbi Kaplan is as follows. Jacob gave Joseph a blessing. He said, the God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked is the God who has been my shepherd from as far back as I can remember until this day, sending an angel to deliver me from all evil. May he bless the lads and let them carry my name along with the names of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac. May they increase in the land like fish. So this is the blessing that the grandfather has for the grandchildren. And when the translation says, sending an angel to deliver me from all evil, what he's actually saying is, Hamalach hagoel oti, an angel to redeem me, a goel, from all the badness, from we call Ra. Okay, so in Jacob's eyes, God sent a redeemer in the form of an angel, so to speak. Anytime Jacob had a problem, and the Torah describes many problems, looking back, Jacob is saying, I was redeemed. And the redeemer in the form of an angel, however you want to understand that, got him out of tight fixes. So the redemption that Jacob experienced, and which he was relating to his son and his grandchildren, the redemption is from trouble, from strife, and from actual evil. Redemption from evil. Okay. Let's take another look in Exodus. What's happening there? Va'era. What's happening here? So Moses has gone to God and said, you know, this whole lobbying thing with Pharaoh is not working. There's all kind of trouble going on here. He's making life worse for us. So God reassures Moses. And he goes, okay, I've heard all the groaning. I've heard what's going on. God's saying to Moses, I know what's going on. Don't think I'm ignorant about this stuff. Okay, he goes, therefore, say to the Israelites in my name, I am God. I will take you away from your forced slavery in Egypt and free you from their slavery. I will liberate you with a demonstration of my power and with great acts of judgment. Okay, I will take you to myself as a nation. Okay, so God's saying, I got this. Okay, no worries. And the Hebrew on this is Ve'ga'alti etchem bizroa netiyah, and I will redeem you with a strong arm. The translation is with a demonstration of my power. The literal translation is I will redeem you with a strong arm. What are they being redeemed from? All the persecution by the Egyptians, in particular Pharaoh. So once again, this redeemer is somebody who's freeing, in this case, an entire nation from evil persecution. Okay, so we see that the idea of the Redeemer is conveyed in Torah as picked up by Rabbi Hirsch is there's trouble going on, there's terrible strife, and people are feeling like, we need Mighty Mouse here to save the day. And God arranges somehow to get them out of the fix. So the idea of a redeemer is closely associated with being redeemed from tremendous strife. Okay. Let us probe further. Rabbi Kaplan talks extensively about that, and we're going to study that right now in this book, his anthology, volume 1, and he has an essay called The Real Messiah, which we're going to look at right now. So bear with me on this. I'm going to be mindful of the time. Okay. This is what he says. What is the future bringing? There are some pessimists who say that mankind is approaching its end. They predict that we will either pollute ourselves off the face of this planet or overpopulate to the barest marginal existence. That is exactly what the fanatical zealot globalists are saying today. Bill Gates is talking about not eating meat and eating this computer-generated artificial stuff. Others see man doing the job more quickly, bringing his civilization crashing down on his head in a nuclear war. On the other hand, there are optimists who predict a utopian future for mankind. They see unlimited energy being generated by thermonuclear furnaces, the conquest of man's most dread diseases, and the solution of all our social problems, leading to a world beyond our fondest present dreams. Never before has mankind been faced with such a wide range of possibilities. Never before has it had such tremendous power at its disposal to use for good or evil. We live in an accelerated age. A man of 2,000 years ago would not find the world of 200 years ago very different. But the man of 200 years ago, if transported into today's society, would find himself in a world beyond his wildest imagination. I remember growing up, my grandmother refused to fly in a plane. She couldn't wrap her mind around people flying. Okay, so this was a person who was born in the early 20th century, but okay. He would find himself in a world where reaching for the moon is not a metaphor for the impossible, but a well-financed government project. As Marty just said, we're on Mars, where atoms are smashed and the secrets of life are being exposed, where the dread plagues that decimated entire civilizations no longer exist, where man communicates instantaneously with all parts of the world and flies in hours to the most distant lands, where beasts of burden are virtually a thing of the past, and man is waited upon by a host of electrical servants. Last year I learned about how the Japanese are using robots in airports to sell insurance, travel insurance. We need not belabor the point, but the past 100 years or so have brought about an increase in knowledge unsurpassed in all human history. Whether we use it wisely or not, these accomplishments are truly amazing. What does it all mean? Why is this all happening now? In all the thousands of years of human civilization, there were many great men of genius. Why could they not bring about the revolution of knowledge that we are now experiencing? Why did it have to wait until this century? And what is it all leading to? And in the midst of all this, why do we suddenly find a generation that will no longer tolerate war, injustice, inequality, the poisoning of our environment, or any of the other evils that we once felt were inevitable? Why this sudden global change of conscience? that seem to be shaking the very roots of our civilization. Why are more and more people coming to the conclusion that the evils of society are not merely the natural consequences of civilization, but are diseases that call for a cure? Is there any relationship between the information explosion and man's increased awareness of social injustice? It's kind of obvious. We might seek sociological reasons connecting the two. We might dismiss it as mere coincidence. However, there is a third ingredient, one that already affects the entire world, but is uniquely related to us as Jews. After 2,000 years of suffering and prayer, we are once again in control of our ancient homeland, state of Israel. Again, the relationship between this and the other two could be dismissed as mere coincidence, except for one thing. It has already been foretold. So there could be sociological reasons. This could be coincidence that the current generations are globally aware, or it could be a matter of prophecy and God's plan. If one looks with an unprejudiced eye at the world today, he will see that we are living in an age where almost all the Jewish prophecies regarding the prelude to the Messianic age are coming to pass. Even the most doubtful skeptic cannot help wondering how this could be mere coincidence. The man with clear vision can truly see the hand of God at work. We who believe in God know that He controls the final destiny of mankind. Although each individual has free will, God guides the general course of history towards His ends. The collective wills of societies are therefore often determined by God. Inventions and discoveries come about as a result of the divine will. Governments are guided by God to work toward His ends. This is what the scripture means when it says in Proverbs, the king's heart is in the hand of God. He turns it wherever He wills. Okay, so automatically I can hear people thinking, free will. Okay, heavy duty ideas. We're going to have to learn further. But obviously where he's coming from is that God in some way, shape, or form is directing things. The ultimate goal of the historic process is the perfection of society. Since everything was created by God, all must be eventually perfected. This is even true of man's mundane world, which was created as an arena for our service toward God. So I think it's worth noting that Rabbi Kaplan and Rabbi Sachs and many Gedolei Hador, many giants of our generations, point to the mission of the Jews as forming the perfect society based on justness, fairness, respect for the individual. You can even tell that in the parshiot we've been reading, that how many mandates do we have to have a fair and just society, from business and taking care of the disadvantaged. There's a huge mission to form the right kind of society, which you might say can be characterized as anti-tyranny. Nobody is essentially better than anybody else. Nobody can claim everybody. There's maybe a business hierarchy, but no person is better than any other person. The ultimate goal is what we call the Messianic age. It is the focus of the entire historical process. The coming of the Messiah is a basic belief of Judaism. This yearning and expectation gives Jews great optimism concerning the ultimate future of mankind. However, if you have ever gone through the many passages in the Bible, the Talmud, the Midrash, and the Zohar that speak of this Messianic age, you might become somewhat confused. That is an understatement. Some traditions seem to contradict others, while the line between prediction and allegory often seems very thin. Very important points. People tend to take these things literally when not everything should be taken literally. For many of us, any attempt to find rhyme or reason in these teachings seems fraught with frustration. One of the basic points of contradiction is whether or not the answer to the Messianic age will come through miracles. Many teachings seem to support the view of the miraculous, such as he's quoting Daniel, Behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, implying some kind of miracle. On the other hand, others seem to support a more prosaic view, such as in Zechariah, behold, your king comes to you, lowly and riding on a donkey. No miracle. The Talmud was aware of this contradiction and answered it by stating that there are two basic ways that the Messianic age can commence. If we are worthy of miracles, it will indeed be miraculous. If we are not, the Messianic age will arrive in a natural manner. Interesting. So that is basically saying that while God is steering us in this direction of the Messianic age, how it comes about, how he arranges this, is highly influenced by us, by what we do, and how we get our act together. If we're up here, miracles. If we're over here, nature. Okay, so that answers some questions about free will. God, it's like almost kind of an interactive process, or at least God is getting feedback, so to speak, about how to arrange for the Messiah to come and to usher in the Messianic age based on how people get their act together or not get their act together. Whether or not we are worthy of miracles, God will guide the forces of history to eventually bring about the Messianic age. If, however, we merit miracles, we can bring it about before the historical process has paved the way. Interesting. Okay, so that's not just saying that God, the way God brings the Messiah and ushers in the Messianic age is dependent upon us, but we even have an opportunity to accelerate God's timetable, so to speak. That's a huge amount of responsibility and opportunity. Miracles are not something to be taken lightly. Man's free will is one of the prime ingredients of creation. If man would lose his free will to act or believe, then he obviously could not be held responsible for his actions or beliefs. That responsibility is the vital human ingredient of man, and it is essential that his free will be at all times preserved. Witnessing a miracle can destroy one's freedom to believe. Therefore, miracles almost always occur under such circumstances where faith is so strong that they do not affect it at all. In order to merit a miracle, man must have such great faith in God that it will in no way be affected by witnessing the miracle. So that, in a way, is saying that the reason why God would not usher in a miracle unless we were ready for it, unless we merited it, is for our own good, because it would backfire. We wouldn't be able to relate to it. It would be counterproductive. Although some of our sages tried to bring about the miraculous coming of the Messiah, many were resigned to wait for God's own time, when the forces of history would bring about this age without recourse to miracles. Thus, the Amor Shmuel taught, there is no difference between now and the time of the Messiah except with respect to our servitude. We also find many places where our sages teach us that the redemption will not come all at once, but gradually in a natural manner. Okay. I have a personal preference for the incremental way, but that's just based on my mindset. Of course, many of the traditions that we find regarding the Messianic age are either allegorical or contingent on factors known only to God. Therefore, not all are necessary conditions for the redemption. For this reason, the Messiah can come at any time totally without warning. So what he's saying, he's making a very interesting characterization of certain traditions we have, which people believe are indications of when the Messiah will come. He's basically saying we can't know the entire story. Therefore, we can't speak definitively, if this happens, then that means the Mashiach's coming. I remember when COVID hit and we had this pandemic, and There was these ridiculous lockdowns. I remember going to Jewish places and people showing me videos of Jews dancing all over the world. This is a sure sign the Mashiach is coming. And what Rabbi Kaplan is saying here is like, you don't know the whole story. You can't be so definite. Okay. In order for a perfect society to exist, such things as disease will have to be eliminated. Thus it has been dictated, and he's quoting Isaiah, the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped, then shall the lame man leap as a hart, a gazelle type thing, and the tongue of the dumb shall sing. Placing a lot of responsibility, or placing the responsibility for disease on humanity. Meaning that before civilization started messing things up with pollution and whatever else, and making phony food and calling it food, disease wasn't an issue. Similarly, other forms of work will be eliminated in order that man devote himself totally towards his ultimate goal. Many such miracles are predicted, such as grapes as large as hen's eggs and grains of wheat as big as a fist. As we now know, all this can be possible with a technology not too far removed from that of today. Indeed, when Rabban Gamliel spoke of these predicted miracles, he stated that they would not involve any change in the laws of nature, but are allusions to a highly advanced technology. Thus, so little labor will be needed to process agricultural products that clothing and loaves of bread will seem to grow on trees. Similarly, talk about the Israelis and what they're doing with salt water and this kind of stuff, and hydroponics. Similarly, as we learn the secrets of light processes, it will become possible to make trees bear fruit continually. Okay, again, not miracles, but advanced understanding of nature to exploit it further. When we think of the miracles of the Messianic age as being technological rather than manifest, then we have no trouble understanding traditions that predict such things as spaceflight and interstellar colonization in the Messianic age, even according to those who believe that it will not be a time of manifest miracles. Of course, all of this would be more conjecture and even forced interpretation if it were not for the fact that our present technological revolution has also been predicted with an approximate date as to its inception. Okay, here we're on tricky ground here. Almost 2,000 years ago, the Zohar predicted in the 600th year of the 6,000, the gates of wisdom on high and the well springs of lower wisdom will be opened. This will prepare the world to enter the 7,000, just as a man prepares himself towards sunset on Friday for the Sabbath. It is the same here, and the mnemonic for this is from Breshit. In the 600th year, all the foundations of the great deep were split. Here we see a clear prediction that in the Jewish year 5600 or 1840, the well springs of lower wisdom would be opened and there would be a sudden expansion of secular knowledge. Although the year 1840 did not yield any major scientific breakthrough, the day corresponds with almost uncanny accuracy to the onset of our present scientific revolution. The tradition may have even anticipated the tremendous destructive powers of modern technology. Thus, we have the teaching of Rabbi Elazar that the Messianic age will begin in a generation with the power to destroy itself. Okay, now, I'm just mindful of Rabbi Kaplan's reminder of thinking allegorically and literally, so that we're in the year 5781 now. And that means we only got 19 years to the 6,000. So, heeding his advice, you can't just say, up, there we go, it's on. So this is where this whole 6,000 idea pops up from the Zohar that people keep circulating. Okay, but Rabbi Kaplan, being diligent in his research, he did say, well, he looks at the prediction that says in the year 5600, We did get the start of the scientific revolution. Okay. These are things that need to be wrestled with. If the technological miracles of the Messianic age will be dramatic, the social revolution will be all the more profound. On an international scale, it will mean the total end of all war. As the prophet Isaiah predicted, nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they practice war anymore. According to many commentaries, the allegory, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, also refers to the peace and harmony between nations. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov states that man will realize the foolishness of war just as he has already realized that of pagan idolatry. And interesting, many scholars draw a connection between idolatry and war in the sense of worshiping false gods that continually let you down because they're not the real God, creating such internal angst that people take it out on other people, taking that to a huge level of wars, conquest, and all this other kind of stuff. Okay, these would be good. On an individual level, the changes will be even greater. When nations beat their swords into plowshares, the hundreds of billions of dollars now used for war and defense will be diverted to the perfection of society. There will be a standard of social justice exemplified by the prophecy in Isaiah. The Lord has sworn, surely I will no more give your corn to be food for your enemies, and strangers will not drink your wine, for which they have not labored. This is also the spirit of the prophecy, also in Isaiah, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and untie those who are bound. You see the time. Okay, I'm going to pause here. We're going to continue this next week. But one thing that this brings to mind is that the importance of realizing that this is a God-centered plan and a God-centered world. God's doing this in his time. And it's not coincidental, and as far as I'm concerned, that all these global zealots, saving the earth type of thing, and Kerry saying the other day, we got 7 years before the earth collapses, whatever he said. These people are not God-believing, God-fearing people, because they're turning into little tyrants, which is the opposite of what God-fearing people do. These people are basically so self-righteous that they're saying, we have the truth here, therefore this, what we believe to be right and just, everybody has to do under force, or else we're in charge here, and we're going to persecute and prosecute people that are in our way. This is the exact opposite that of what should be taking place to usher in the Messiah. So, and it's not coincidental that the people that are so fascistic are people that are trying to eliminate God awareness and God consciousness from our society. Those two go hand in hand. Okay. I really believe that it's impossible to discuss the coming of the Mashiach and what society has to be like without giving due criticism to the people these days who are pretending that they're God. Okay. Okay, that is the beginning of our discussion on the Messiah. There's a lot of more juicy stuff, which we will continue next week. For the rest of this class, we're going to go over problems in meditation, and then we're going to meditate. Today, we'll talk about inability to concentrate. An overactive, this is from our mentor, Bante. An overactive jumping attention is something that everybody experiences from time to time. It is generally handled by the techniques presented in the chapter on distractions. You should also be informed, however, that there are certain external factors that contribute to this phenomenon. And these are best handled by simple adjustments in your schedule. Mental images are powerful entities. They can remain in the mind for long periods. All of the storytelling arts are direct manipulation of such material. And if the writer has done his job well, the characters and images presented will have a powerful and lingering effect on the mind. If you have been to the best movie of the year, the meditation that follows is going to be full of those images. Your meditation is going to be full of monsters. If you were halfway through the scariest horror novel you ever read, your meditation is going to be full of monsters. Don't read Stephen King or watch one of his movies before you meditate. And similarly, don't watch your favorite romance or whatever before you meditate either. So switch the order of events. Do your meditation first, then read or go to the movies. Another influential factor is your own emotional state. If there is some real conflict in your life, that agitation will carry over into meditation. Try to resolve your immediate daily conflicts before meditation when you can. Your life will run more smoothly and you won't be pondering uselessly in your practice. Very important. If you're emotionally disturbed, you think about it. Sometimes doing some light exercise will just help flush the system. But don't use this advice as a way to avoid meditation. Sometimes you can't resolve every issue before you sit. Just go ahead and sit anyway. Use your meditation to let go of all the egocentric attitudes that keep you trapped within your own limited viewpoint. Your problems will resolve much more easily thereafter. And then there are those days when it seems that the mind will never rest, but you can't locate any apparent cause. Remember the cyclic alternation we spoke of earlier. Meditation goes in cycles. We have good days and you have bad days. Okay. Vipassana meditation, which is what we're talking about here, where you're just focusing, you're developing an awareness of the here and now, the present moment, is primarily an exercise in awareness. Emptying the mind is not as important as being mindful of what the mind is doing. Really, really important. There are meditations, and Rabbi Kaplan has spoken of them, we even mentioned that, where emptying, having no mind, emptying your mind is the goal. What we're talking about, what we do at the end of this class is this meditation, which is be aware of what you're thinking about. Awareness, a certain amount of detachment from the thoughts and feelings that keep popping up in your mind. Our goal is to be aware of them and not let them run away with us. If you are frantic and you can't do a thing to stop it, just observe. It is all you. The result will be one more step forward in your journey of self-exploration. Above all, don't get frustrated over the nonstop chatter of your mind. That babble is just one more thing to be mindful of. I like this guy. He's exactly right. That's why this is the number one, this is why we do this meditation. And that's why you can even, if you don't have time to train a little bit or exercise a little bit, and you're still emotionally whacked out a little bit, you still meditate and you just look at those emotions. And the whole practice of it is not letting them run away with you, getting a little bit more detached, See how you're upset, see, and you don't have to analyze it. We're not talking about analyzing. We're talking about just, I'm upset. I'm upset. I'm mad. I'm sad. Whatever. I'm scared. I'm anxious. That awareness, that step apart is what we're talking about. That's the foundation of being able to go to other places, more advanced states, that being able to have that detachment. That's what we're talking about here. Okay. Okay, we're going to stop the recording.